Okay, our windshield is all installed. From where we left off last time, I'll just kind of go over it. You know, we made all the trims. I put the tape, I wrapped it over the edge of this and then stuck it back in place, moved it all up. Made sure you put the well nuts in, those black rubber nuts. You put the well nuts in, make sure you put those in first because your windshield is going to go over it. So if you don't, you'll have to pull the windshield back out and try to get them in. Put the well nuts in, and this is your strip, trim strip. It's going to go there. There's your screws with the little plastic washers, okay? The well nuts, the rubberized nuts, as you tighten the screw, obviously it goes through and it swells the rubber up and holds it into the holes. So when you do it, just make sure you push that windshield and you get it completely flush and tight up against the A-pillar there as it goes up all the way to here. You'll notice that there's three: the bottom, the middle, and the top ones are going to have longer screws. And the reason is those screws are going to go through the well nut, and then we're going to put I'll go through here and show you the black, those right there. 1, 2, 3. And the manual shows you how we're going to go 2 inches up from the end, drill a hole. That hole then is just going to slide over that. We're going to put a lock nut on it to hold it in place. Then you simply get it all pretty looking and wrap it up, wrap it tight and cut it off. So these three, the bottom, top, and middle, all three have those wraps. Now have the longer screws for that purpose, and these will just be shorter screws here to go through. If you have a hard time getting those screws to start, a lot of times what you do is go run your finger around the backside into that hole and just kind of push that well nut, kind of smash it in enough to where that screw can grab a hold of the metal insert inside of there and get it started. All right, then of course we pulled the tape, the two-sided tape that we're going to put on the bottom of the windshield. It has the red cover on it, so you're going to pull that down, let it hang out underneath here, and then just take some screws out and pull it, you know, and I just kind of go behind them and just pull that red tape all the way around, being sure your windshield's scooted all the way up, which it should, because now everything back there should fit, okay? So then just go back through and tighten all those screws down. If you have, you have to use, to put the rib nuts in, I talk about in the forum. This is such a thin piece here. It's not much for that rib nut to really grip a hold of. So I've always had problems with those rib nuts later slipping when you tried to put the screws on. So what I finally started doing was getting a little bit of that methyl chrylate, you know, that we use on the fuselage and stuff, and just get you a little bit of that. And I just took a popsicle stick or something. And then when I got the rib nut on my gun and ready to install it, I put a little of that methyl chrylate on the sides. Then when you push it in, what it does is it pushes that metal chrysolite up underneath the head of the rib nut, and then just go ahead and pull the rivet. You're not going to see any of this over here, so it doesn't have to be real pretty. Just pull it, a little bit will come out. I just take my finger and just wipe a little bit of the excess off around the edge, so make sure it's not in the hole. But it should just squirt around the edge. Don't get too much, just a little bit. And just as long as you don't have it down below here, you're never going to see it. That absolutely holds those rib nuts, and you'll never have a problem with them slipping. So that's just a little trick I did. I tried it with super glue before, and that was kind of okay, but the methyl chrylite is the cat's meow. So the rib nuts all went in. You drill that out. We had those drilled with a number 40 to start with. I'll tell you something here. This is the last piece right here at the end, and they don't work out. This one will work out to where it's far enough down. You can see the back of the inside of the boot cowl there. So it was far enough down to where I could get a rib nut into here. This is just too tight. Plus you see where it falls behind this. There's not enough room to put a rib nut in. What I did is just left that hole in the back at a 40, and I put a screw, I think it's a 0.375 or something. I put just a regular screw, pointed screw, you know, and I put it in there and let's let it grab the hole and kind of be self-tapping into the boot cowl, and that's what I use there. So it looks the same, but it's not going into a rib nut, it's just going into the boot cowl itself right there, okay? So we drilled it with a 40, and then we came back and we used a step drill to step it down to like I forget what size it is, but just step it down somewhere underneath the G, letter G drill bit you're going to use to drill out the final hole size for the rib nut. That's very, very important. You want those, and When you put those in, you want to make sure when you're using the letter G, the final size, drill it down and just don't let it wobble. I drill it down and just barely put pressure on it and let it go through, and then pull it back out easy. You don't want that enlarging. Don't wallow out that hole. You want that Rivnut almost hard to go in, where you have to wiggle that Rivnut to get it to sink in, because when you squeeze the Rivnut, it widens it out, and that's what grabs the metal. And if you wallow it out, then of course it's not going to even work at all. And when you go to tighten these up, they'll spin, the Rivnuts will spin, and then you have to go underneath the dash and try to figure out some way to get up in there and grab a hold of those, and it's not fun. So that methyl chrylite kind of solves that problem. All right, so going on to the Skylight, and what we've done is we've gone, let me go around to the back, and this is kind of the way I like to do it. Again, I suggest you go to my forum post on the forum, because I go into more detail about it, but I'm going to show you here with pictures. You can read there. The first thing I do is I set the Skylight in position. You know, you're going to put the tape like this. You're going to put it between this Rivnut. You got these Rivnuts you put in when you're doing the wing probably, and you got one you just added up there on either side and there. So put between these, you're going to put a piece of red tape like this up there, and get it in a position. Take the Skylight, the vents go on the right side, and then get you a piece of some little masking tape, and just put a little masking tape on the corners. Get it to where you're nice and in the hole, and make sure you got enough room over this hole here where you already got that Rivnut. Also, you got 4 holes going across this crossbar that already have inserts in them to take a 1032 screw that we're going to use, an R1032, a 526 C 1032 R10 goes in here with plastic washers. But the Turtledeck is going to go over the top of this, and then we're going to put silicone on here real good before we put that top of that deck on, because water will come this way. So for right now, you'll see these little wedges go up there. That's so it can, cause the Skylight's coming at an angle, so there's some little wedges. What I do is I just took a little super glue, or you can take a little silicone, whatever's handy, and I just go ahead and take those and super glue them down, see, into place. And that way they're sitting there, they're right over the holes. You don't have to mess with them whenever you do all your drilling for this, and then match drill again to the Turtledeck later, and it's a pain messing with those. So just glue them or silicone them, stick them in place where they'll hold until you can get your holes drilled there, see. Your back of your wires coming across for your little antennas that are up on top of the seat belt, you make sure to run them to the back side of the wedges, so when you set it down, they're not pinching your wires anywhere. When they say to put tape, I set the Turtledeck up here where it's set here, and the back of the Turtledeck, put a piece of tape across the back just to kind of mark how far the Turtledeck went to. It went to like right here. Take the Turtledeck off, put you 2 strips of this across here. I run a strip of red here and here, and it might touch a little bit right here. It's not going to touch anywhere in here. This is, you can see, this is well below lower. It's not going to touch the Turtledeck, so putting it all up in here like the manual said is just ridiculous. And it's going to go here. So once I've got it all in position and squared up, and I'm sure in the front goes up where it's kind of flush with the front of that bar up there. Remember, we had to put Rivnuts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Rivnuts across there. So I set it in place, make sure everything, all the 4 corners look good. It's sitting up over the tape and going over the Rivnuts in all 4 corners. Tape it down where it'll hold still. Go up there, push the, I like to put the windshield on top of the Skylight, as you can see, because I just think it's more aerodynamic. You can go either way. They say you can put the Skylight on top of the windshield or whatever, but anyway, in any case, it overlaps right there. And I think if you were into a rain or something like that, water flowing up, getting into it would be better that way. So you'll see, I haven't tightened this down completely yet, but you'll see you'll come back later and we're going to caulk all that same right there. So the windshield is on top, the Skylight's on the bottom. The windshield, we've already match drilled to it. So we're going to set it down, and then we're going to match drill these. You got 2 outside holes that are going into the Rivnuts, and then you got these 5 across here. So we're going to match drill those through the windshield into where the Rivnuts are going to go. Then what I do is I go ahead and put a few screws. I went ahead and mounted these screws. And by the way, hardly none of these screws are in the kit. These 632 R9s you're supposed to have here. I just gave up on trying to get them. They never have them. So I actually had some 12s. I just stuck some 12s in, which doesn't matter. It just means they're going to go through the Rivnut and stick out a little bit, and you can't even see them from the inside anyway. So you can go longer if you need to, no big deal. So I put a couple in there and tightened them down. I tightened these two outside edge ones down because I wanted to hold that Skylight in place. Then what I do is I actually go, and we've got these spacers. See, they're going between the tubing and the Skylight. So what I do is go inside, because what happens is they hold the Skylight up. Obviously you can see it's higher, it comes up, and there's a gap there. There's a short spacer and shorter screws here. There's a longer spacer on the fronts with a longer screw. In fact, you got to cut 5/16 off of that screw they ship you. So you just whack off 5/16. Then what I do is I come back in here and I take the spacers and a screw, and from the inside, I go inside the cockpit. Then we haven't secured anything back here, so I can push the Skylight up out of the way so I can get my hand up there sitting on the inside. And I put the screw and the spacer, and I screw it down all the way to where it'll be about the right height. It'll be a little higher because the screw head's inside instead of outside, but it's close enough. So because you want it to take its shape before it gets to the back, before we match drill these holes. So I put those in, and then what I do, you'll see, looking down through the Skylight, you'll see the screw heads exactly where they're going to be. So what I do then is I just mark them with the number 40 drill. I just put a little mark. I just drill down right over the screw heads. That way I got my 4 marks there. And then come back in the back with those sitting there. Then come back to the back and match drill to the, again, these aren't Rivnuts in this cross member part. It comes from the factory with those inserts already into this channel, this square channel going across here. So you're going to match drill this, and remember, it's sitting on the wedges. You see the wedge down through there, that wedge that I glued in, it's sitting there, and there's the hole right there. So I match drill them. These holes, all the holes across the front in the Skylight and the holes across the back in the Skylight are going to go to 1/4 inch. So you use your step drill to go down to 1/4 inch, and then make sure, see, you've cut them down, countersunk them good on all those. The outside ones are only going to go to 0.180 on the sides, because that's taking a 6/32 screw that's going to go into that Rivnut right there. So we're smaller, all 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are only going to 180 and countersunk. These are all going to 1/4. You'll also then go ahead, and once you've match drilled these and done them, so you know that's held the Skylight up in the proper position. So you're down here match drilling, it'll be correct, and it's easy to get your locator down underneath here to match drill. And then go back and unscrew your screws and take those out of the way. Go ahead and drill, go ahead and take your 30 drill or whatever and drill all the way through the places you marked. And then the same thing, come back with your step drill, drill those to 1/4 and countersink them. Then what I do is, right now, still before I've put the back on, I went ahead and I pulled the red tape off of the sides, both sides. And I went inside and I took these 4 black washers. There's one on the top and then one on the bottom of the windshield. And then you got the spacer. I'll go down there and show you. But then you got the spacer. Kind of see there. So on the top, we've got, black washer on the top, black washer on the bottom, and then we got the spacer, and then it's going down into the insert that's already into the fuselage. So I actually can do it by myself. What I do is put silicone on all 4 of these washers that are black, and then take the screw and go to the top and just get it started, and we'll push the screw through the hole and push that spacer washer down on it so it sticks and holds it. Then you can come on the inside, and then the screw can be pushed up. I actually use this and put my hand through here, and you can go hold the screw on both of these sides. And if you have, since we haven't put the Turtledeck on, you can also come back around this way and go into work on that one. That's the only one you actually can't reach, but you can fiddle around with it to find the screw hole. So anyway, put the spacer on, then go through, push it down to here. And then what I do is just push up on the Skylight till I can get the screw and I can feel and kind of locate that hole. Then I go on the outside and just give it a twist or two to kind of start it. And so you do all 4 of those that way, and then you go back up to the top, and then go ahead and screw them down, get them started, and screw them down tight. That'll push it. Then you've got your tape already out for the sides here. And so you're really pretty much set now. We can then go back up and I'll tighten these screws up on there. You know, you've got your cross piece, your metal piece that goes across. So there I've got my Skylight on the bottom. I've got my windshield on top of that. And then I've got my metal piece, trim piece going across here. I've got 5 of these 526C 632 R9s that we don't have again. I use 12s. The ones on the back here are bigger. The ones that go across this piece here are 526C 1032 R10s. So these are the bigger screws here. And then the ones that are going on the sides here, I believe those were 632 R8s that go into these 2 corners. The front 2 corners we're not going to do yet because we got one last piece that's going to wrap around that wing root piece. It's going to wrap around here and overlap that. And it's going to actually have a hole match drilled for that one. And then we're going to put a screw through that piece into there. So just leave the front 2 Rivnut screws alone for now, okay? Later, our fuel cover, which you can see I've already, while I had the wing off, I went ahead and did all the match drilling to the fuel covers on the ground, so it was easier. So they're already done. Burned out all the holes where the nut plates were, so that's done. So later our tank cover is going to go over, and it's actually going to overlap onto the Skylight. So it gives you good protection there for leaking and so forth. Then you take some alcohol. You can see I had a little bit of silicone. They say you can wipe all that off. I just leave it. Just leave that bead of silicone there. It'll dry out clear. It's still wet. I just did it. It'll dry out clear and you'll never notice it. And then if you get some on it, I just put a little alcohol and clean it off. All right. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to take my Turtledeck and set it up there. Get the center of it all, of the center of the Turtledeck kind of aligned with this. Make sure it's over far enough over to here where we're getting good coverage, you know, and enough edge spacing to cover this Rivnut and the one on that side. Tape them in place, and then go ahead and match drill all of these across through here. We're going to match drill, match drill the Rivnuts, match drill the Rivnuts. And one last thing we'll have to do, and this is kind of hard, but you can see there's a hole here. The manual says you have to drill this hole. You don't. It's already drilled now. And if you look in the manual, not in the manual, if you look on my forum post, I'll tell you what goes here. None of these screw call outs are called out in the manual. And this isn't even talked about in the manual. It talks about using drilling a hole and then using, I forgot what it was, something else that was wrong. But in any case, then we're going to bring this, after we put these in here, then we'll push the Turtledeck down and we'll match drill. I actually come from the inside and match drill up. Make sure you have somebody or have it pushed down, or somehow that you have the Turtledeck will want to stick up here. Push it down where it's nice and flush and hold it while you match drill this hole. And you're going to widen the Turtledeck, and you're going to put a screw and a plastic washer on it, and go back and have to put a lock nut on the inside. And that's a hook right there, and there's not much room, and it's a real pain. So I always have to have somebody come help me on the outside while I get on the inside and try to get that nut up there and started. And that's one of the very few places I have to have help in this whole airplane build. Obviously, we're going to pull the tape off of these before we put the Turtledeck on. And then you'll see in the manual later, we're going to come back and like I said, before we actually put the Turtledeck on, after we're drilled out and finally installed, we're going to put a complete layer of silicone across here and around the holes on the outside, so that when that Turtledeck sits on it, it has a very good seal. And then later when I come back with the silicone around all these parts. When you're done with all the pieces, you'll want to come back and silicone all the edges. We'll do the same thing with this. We'll silicone across the whole front edge of this, where the Turtledeck meets. It'll be solid silicone and all the way around the sides for water protection. So I don't think I missed anything. I just wanted to show it to you. And I think I talked a little bit about in the forum post, a little bit about if you're using the new dual antenna, the manual, you have to go to the executive glass manual. You kind of find the call outs for this, but you can see here that make sure you got the backer plate. That's that piece of metal behind it. And you see you got two, so you got your dual antenna, so it's both satellite and communications, and there's your lock nuts. And it takes different screws and washers that go in here, and then you'll see it also make sure you've got the rubber gasket that's right there. So the manual says you can't paint this side around it. That's not true. You can. Obviously, you got a piece of rubber that's going in there for a gasket seal. The part that needs to be unpainted is this side where it makes the ground contact, not on that side. So I see people trying to tape it off and protect it. There's no reason to. You're putting a rubber gasket on there. But you probably won't have the hardware for this. Like they look in the executive glass manual, not the finish manual, for the parts call out for that. And also my forum post, I give you the specific screws and washers and so forth. So that's it for that. Hope it helps.